On the 24th of November, 2014, employees arriving at work at Sony Pictures Entertainment in Culver City, California, found that their computers had been taken over. The screens displayed a red skeleton and a message from a group calling itself Guardians of Peace. The message warned that Sony's secrets were about to be released to the world. Across the company's internal network, something was systematically wiping hard drives, overwriting data with a string of characters, rendering machines unbootable, destroying years of stored information. The wiper malware had been running since early morning. By the time Sony's IT teams understood the scale of what was happening, it was too late to stop it. Approximately 70% of Sony Pictures' laptop and desktop computers had been destroyed. Servers had been wiped. The company was forced to tell thousands of employees to disconnect everything, to unplug computers, shut down email, stop using the corporate network entirely. One of the largest entertainment companies in the world was reduced, in a matter of hours, to communicating by telephone and handwritten notes. What followed over the next several weeks was a systematic, public humiliation of a major corporation conducted through the careful, strategic release of everything the attackers had stolen before they wiped the servers. And what they had stolen was essentially everything. The Sony Pictures hack was not an opportunistic attack. It was a precisely planned intelligence and sabotage operation that had been in preparation for months before the November detonation. The attackers, later attributed by the FBI, the intelligence community, and independent security researchers to the Lazarus Group, a hacking organization operated by or on behalf of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, had established a persistent presence inside Sony Pictures' network well before the destructive payload was deployed. During this period of quiet access, they systematically identified and exfiltrated the data that would subsequently be weaponized. The quantity of exfiltrated data was enormous. Approximately 100 terabytes of information was ultimately released or threatened for release by the Guardians of Peace over the weeks following the initial attack. The released material included completed, unreleased films, including Annie, Mr. Turner, and still-in-production cuts of other features that were posted to file-sharing networks before their theatrical release dates. It included the personal information, social security numbers, salary details, medical records, home addresses of approximately 47,000 current and former Sony employees. It included the private email archives of senior executives. The private email archives were the most immediately damaging element of the release in terms of reputational and relational consequences. The emails were not mere corporate correspondence. They were candid, private communications, the kind of frank, unguarded language that people use when they believe they're speaking privately, and they contained exactly the kind of material that causes maximum damage when exposed. The content of the released emails became the subject of intense media coverage that continued for weeks and caused cascading professional and personal damage to individuals throughout the entertainment industry. Among the most widely reported disclosures, co-chairman of Sony Pictures Amy Pascal and prominent producer Scott Rudin exchanged emails containing racially insensitive jokes about President Barack Obama's presumed film preferences. The exchange caused significant public backlash and damaged both individuals professionally. Pascal subsequently departed Sony Pictures in February of 2015. Salary data revealed significant pay disparities, including the widely reported finding that the female leads of American Hustle were paid significantly less than their male counterparts for their work on the film. The disclosure reignited public discussion of gender pay inequality in the film industry. Executive assessments of major Hollywood actors, including unflattering characterizations of stars and their projects, were widely circulated. Some assessments damaged professional relationships that were subsequently reported to have become strained. Several actors and their representatives publicly responded to what had been written about them in what were supposed to be private communications. The operational impact on Sony's film release schedule was also significant. The film The Interview, a comedy whose plot involved an assassination attempt on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, had been scheduled for a Christmas release. The Guardians of Peace issued specific threats against theaters showing the film, invoking the September 11th attacks in language designed to be maximally alarming. Several major theater chains announced they would not screen the film. Sony initially canceled the theatrical release entirely before reversing course and distributing it digitally and through a limited theatrical release. The attribution of the attack to North Korea was contested when the FBI announced it in December of 2014, and the technical basis for that attribution has been examined extensively in the security research community. The FBI cited several categories of evidence: code similarities between the Sony wiper malware and previously identified North Korean malware, infrastructure overlap between servers used in the Sony attack and servers used in previous attacks attributed to North Korea, and specific technical indicators, including unique deletion algorithms that matched known Lazarus Group tools. The Lazarus Group, named by security researchers, not by North Korea, is a hacking organization whose activities have been tracked since at least 2009. The group has been linked to a range of operations, including the 2009 distributed denial-of-service attacks against American and South Korean government websites, the 2013 Dark Soul attack that wiped the systems of South Korean banks and broadcasters, and subsequently the creation and deployment of WannaCry ransomware using stolen NSA tools in 2017. The Sony attacks connection to the interview established, with considerable clarity, a plausible motive. North Korea had publicly condemned the film in the months before the attack, calling it an act of war and threatening unspecified consequences. The motive, combined with the technical attribution evidence, produced the FBI's conclusion. Some security researchers expressed skepticism about the attribution's certainty, noting that technical indicators can be fabricated by sophisticated actors seeking to create false flags. The counterargument, made by researchers who had examined the malware in detail, was that the depth and consistency of the technical overlaps with previous North Korean tools made fabrication implausible. The sophistication required to plant convincing false attribution markers of this depth would itself require capabilities comparable to the original attack. The Sony Pictures hack established several precedents that have shaped the subsequent understanding of state-sponsored cyberattacks. It was the first major instance of a nation-state deploying destructive wiper malware against a private corporation in the United States, marking an escalation from espionage-oriented intrusions, which had been common, to destructive attacks, which had previously been reserved for targets in conflict zones or explicitly political contexts. The use of a sophisticated cyber attack to punish a private company for the content of a film it was producing represented a new category of coercive behavior. It also demonstrated the specific danger of exfiltration combined with threatened release as a coercive tool. The attackers did not merely destroy data, they weaponized it, releasing it in calculated tranches designed to maximize ongoing embarrassment and pressure. This combination, steal everything, destroy the originals, release strategically, proved more damaging than either exfiltration or destruction alone would have been. The incident accelerated the adoption of cybersecurity frameworks across the entertainment industry and prompted the Department of Homeland Security to expand its information-sharing relationships with the private sector. It also prompted public debate about the appropriate government response to state-sponsored cyberattacks against private targets, a debate that has not produced stable policy conclusions. Sony Pictures spent approximately $35 million in fiscal year 2015 on remediation and recovery from the attack, rebuilding its IT infrastructure, replacing hardware, restoring what data could be restored from backups, and implementing substantially more rigorous security architecture. The employees whose personal information was exposed, 47,000 people, many of whom had not worked at Sony for years, faced the consequences of having their social security numbers, medical histories, and personal details publicly available, without having had any role in the security decisions that allowed the breach to occur. The films that were leaked before release cost Sony an estimated $75 million in estimated lost revenue, though the precise attribution of box office shortfalls to the leaks rather than to other factors is inherently uncertain. Kim Jong-un watched the interview release. After all the threats and the destruction and the weeks of global media coverage, through a digital rental platform. The film received mixed reviews.